Welcome to part 2 of the Lexi VFX DMX mini course on Unreal Engine virtual production. This section covers a very brief intro to MA.2 on PC, at maybe a 97 level, just enough to load the sample show file and output ArtNet, along with the basics of navigating the interface. A couple of notes before we get into things: there will be links in the description for dot2 and its download page. malighting.com/dot2 provides an overview of what dot2 is, and then malighting.com/downloads/products/dot2 has the downloads to install dot2 on PC 1.9 and MAZone Free Lighting Visualizer dot2 3D. Both of these are relatively straightforward point-and-click installers. As I mentioned, this is a two-computer setup for getting ArtNet into Unreal Engine. However, you don't strictly need to do this if you're looking to generate DMX inside of Unreal, and then output from there almost exclusively. However, the next section covering ArtNet input into Unreal Engine will also cover the basics of getting the DMX integration set up, so you may want to follow along anyway. It's also worth noting this is a two-computer setup because all the ArtNet software that I've seen so far monopolizes the software network port ID used for ArtNet, so only one program can access that port at the same time on the same computer. So the workaround is to use two computers even if you have a low-spec secondary machine. From there, the Unreal sample fixtures only seem to work with ArtNet at the moment. Streaming ECN didn't seem to work, and I heard in the virtual production Facebook group something vaguely about that being a thing. It's worth noting that SACN is typically more flexible in the IP ranges it works with. However, ArtNet can be similarly flexible, but dot2 in particular and MA consoles want you to be on a 10.something or 2.something IP range. So for example, one machine is 10.0.0.3 and the other is 10.0.0.5. However, other common IP ranges like standard 192.168.something are incompatible with dot2 for ArtNet, which may be inconvenient with existing home networks. I've got a Cisco Meraki network, so I was able to create another virtual LAN or VLAN dedicated to lighting with a 10.something range. However, I don't expect everyone to do this. What you can do, though, is connect an Ethernet cable between your two machines. If one of them has Wi-Fi, such as a laptop, it's possible to bridge the networks together in software to maintain an internet connection to both machines. There's lots of resources online that will show you how to do this. I would recommend a USB 3 gigabit Ethernet dongle, though, such as a Surface Ethernet adapter, which I have. Which can add a second network interface to your dev machine if it doesn't already have two, and then plug a network cable between that and your secondary machine if possible. I can't speak for how this would work on Mac since there are lighting softwares for Mac, but they have fairly significantly worse support in my experience. On Windows, you can right-click on the network icon in the taskbar and open Network and Internet settings, then Adapter Options, right-click your Ethernet port and select Properties, select Internet Protocol version 4, and then click Properties. Click the radio button to use the following IP address instead of obtain an IP address automatically, and fill in the IP address field as, say, 10.0.0.2 on one machine, and 10.0.0.3 on the other. Both should use a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. If you don't know what that is, don't worry too much about it. The default gateway may be left blank, and then you can hit OK on each property window to save the settings and close out. For the purposes of this tutorial, it would be good practice to reboot your computer at this point, or you can open the Windows Start menu and type CMD to open command prompt to run ipconfig/release, and then pressing enter, waiting for it to complete, and then typing ipconfig/renew, and then pressing enter when the first command finishes. Once finished, it should output something similar to what I have here. These command prompt steps may not be strictly necessary, but it tells your computer to renew its IP address with any networks that issue them automatically, as I'm doing with my particular setup, and that generally forces the network settings to refresh. As a reminder, you'll need to click through and allow Windows network prompts to allow programs network access on both machines as those come up, or manually add them after the fact by hitting the Windows key and searching Allow an app through Windows Firewall and opening up the result from Control Panel. You'll also want to open File Explorer and navigate to the Network section in the sidebar. On a new network, it should prompt a bar across the top of File Explorer that network sharing is disabled. because Windows defaults any new networks like the one you just created to a public type network. Click on this bar and it will prompt to allow sharing on public networks. The yes option will enable sharing on public networks, which is maybe not the wisest option. However, clicking no will convert your new lighting network to a private network and enable network sharing, which is required for the programs to communicate. So with networking out of the way, you'll want to download the dot2 sample show file from the GitHub repo in the description, along with the rest of the Unreal projects. When you've done so, you'll want to open File Explorer and go to the View tab to enable Show Hidden Files in the top right. You'll then want to navigate to C, Program Data, which is a hidden folder, MA Lighting Technologies with spaces in between, dot2 v1.9/shows, and then copy Unreal Engine Sharpie test.show.gz to this folder. You'll now want to open dot2. This section of the interface is basically the keys on a physical dot2 console. Now press the backup key on screen as shown, then press Load Show, and load the Unreal Show file by clicking it and clicking OK in the upper right. Next, click Setup, and then click Sessions. Click the Stop/Leave button in the corner if you see one. Then click Start New or Join, and then click Session 1. At this point, you can open MA3D if you'd like, although this is not immediately relevant. You can then click the Add button inside of dot2 on PC, and dot2 3D will show up as an option you can click to join it into the session. From here, you can also join a dot2 on PC instance running on your dev machine if you'd like. Just make sure to start dot2 on the lighting computer first so that it will be the session master, which is responsible for outputting ArtNet to Unreal. Speaking of ArtNet, to actually enable it, you'll want to make sure you're joined to a session and then hit the Setup key in the dot2 interface and then click Network Protocols. Then click on ArtNet to toggle it on and off, provided you have a compatible network IP setting. If you're using an incompatible IP range on your network, it will keep the red no sign no matter how many times you click it, so correct network settings are fairly important here. At least until Unreal fixtures better support the more flexible SACN protocol. If there's multiple network cards, you may need to go to Setup and change the network interface used by dot2. Also in the upper right when you press the Setup key, and then restart the software if it's using an incorrect one. That said, if you see a green check mark in the Network Protocols window for ArtNet, dot2 should now be outputting over the network. At this point, you can click and drag the fader under the Sharpies column, or use it with a touchscreen to move the fader and control the output. You can also cycle through pre-programmed cues with the button underneath that fader, or cycle backwards with the button just above that fader. The button above that button can be used to toggle those lights on and off. To start, I've only programmed cues for the movers/Sharpies, but you can also click to select or deselect groups in that top window for different fixture types, and then control them with the fixture controls that show up in the upper right sort of virtual screen. The virtual clear key will clear a selection if pressed once, and will clear any control changes you made in the upper right window if you press it a second time. You can also select fixtures with a box selection in the fixtures output window, or press the virtual fixtures key to bring that up. And then you can press the virtual full key to turn fixtures on, or double tap the software plus and minus keys to gradually increment or decrement the brightness. There's a lot to learn in dot2 and other lighting software, so I'd recommend the dot2 training playlist from MA, which will be in the description, and I will probably update this show file at some point on GitHub to flesh out the example cues for other fixture types as well. And also as well as look into a tutorial after this on how I actually programmed the dot2 sample show file. Anyway, this should roughly be enough information to get started in Unreal, so this should conclude part 2 of the DMX for Virtual Production mini course. See you in the next section.